Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Maroon Friday edition of the Yard. I wanted to have this up much earlier. You see, it's afternoon now. But the final proofs for Dogpile came in yesterday. And, of course, every day matters because of the supply chain being so incredibly slow. So I stayed up to about 4 in the morning to finish all the proofs, send all the corrections in. There's always stuff you find when you go back through it. And let me just say this. Despite the fact this book has been edited and edited and edited, I'm sure that I missed something. It's just part of the deal. But a lot of people involved in this process to ensure that it's as close to perfect as possible. And so if you hadn't done so, go to dogpilethebook.com. That's D-A-W-G, the book, Dogpile, D-A-W-G-P-I-L-E, thebook.com. Sorry for the convoluted answer there. And you can pre-order the book to guarantee you get one before Christmas. Now, we're going to do some baseball game day signings. Probably not going to have time to do any football game day signings. I mean, I would love to be able to have some in here for the Egg Bowl. But I'm not optimistic about pulling all that together. I'll be on the road extensively during the holiday season. Of course, I won't leave you guys behind. I mean, I'll still do these shows for you. And, of course, we'll have our content over at Gene's page. But month of December will be exceptionally busy. We'll get those pre-orders out to you soon. It's one of those things, too, is once the book goes off to print, which is what will happen next. And let me give you just a little bit of background. I don't want to belabor the point too long. I know you guys want to talk some football. But, so, you write in Microsoft Word and you do all this great stuff. And there's so many great programs out there. You can use Grammarly and, of course, the AP style book to make sure that everything is correct. And then after you do all that, there's some changes that happen. Sometimes they'll change a word or two, and it almost changes the complexion of a paragraph. So you got to go back and check all that stuff. And then it goes off to layout, and then they make a book out of it. And so what I mean by that is, you're working off a Microsoft Word doc. Well, then they convert it to book format. Then they send it back, and sometimes things can look a little silly or whatever, but you go back and read everything again. That's what I did yesterday. Spent the day and night kind of working through that because there are things you see too with fresh eyes. You know what I'm saying? Like if you write something a month ago, the day you write it, if you're the person that made the mistake, chances are you're going to miss the mistake. You go back a couple weeks later and you find a few things. You go back a month later with fresh eyes and you see some things that perhaps you missed because a lot of times in your mind it still reads correctly the first time through. So did all that yesterday. Found a few things here and there, a few homonyms, some quotations out of place, or perhaps an apostrophe that should go before an S rather than before an S. There's just a lot of that goes on. It's a little nitpicky stuff, and you say, well, it doesn't change the tenor of the book, but you still want it to be correct. I also found a couple things, too, some mistakes that I'd made with some numerical values and that kind of stuff. And so you got to go back and double-check all that stuff. And again, despite my best efforts, I guarantee you I missed something. I guarantee it. That's the beauty of the first edition, right? So appreciate everybody's support. We've sold, I guess, over 1,000 books now, pre-sold. Now, that's going to grow over the course of the next couple of months. A lot of people are like, I got plenty of time. You do, but let me tell you this. What's going to happen is when the publisher gets ready to submit the print order, and because of the fact that, that the supply chain is running, it's taken about twice as long to get a book printed than it did the other 4. Probably twice as long. And so here's what's going to happen. There's no way we're going to be able to get 2 pressings between now and Christmas. It's absolutely not going to happen. So the first order that comes out for the publisher is going to cover all of your pre-orders, the pre-orders of the bookstore, and then a little bit of backstock. We expect to come up really close to exhausting that backstop before Christmas. So in order to make sure that you get a book or multiple books for the Bulldogs in your life, you need to pre-order. I'm saying that as your friend because I love you, and I want to make sure that you have these books for Christmas, because here's what's going to happen. Ladies, listen to me. Do not procrastinate when it comes to this. You can wait and buy your eggnog and all your mistletoe and all that stuff whenever you want to. But if you are trying to buy your husband and or son or daughter or father-in-law or whoever personalized or signed copy of Dogpile, do not procrastinate, because I can't guarantee you, a couple weeks before Christmas that they're going to have them in stores. I can't guarantee that. But in order to make sure you get one, you pre-order, you're guaranteed to get a book. So again, dogpilethebook.com. And I'm going to take myself to lunch today to celebrate putting another book to bed, because I am completely done now. completely finished. Everything has been submitted. I tell people all the time, I meet with a lot of aspiring young writers, and sometimes old writers or middle-aged writers or whatever. And there are a lot of people that want to write a book. And I've written 5 now, and I can tell you I learned something, number one, about myself, but also, 2, about the book writing process every single time. And you'd like to think that you learn that kind of stuff as you go, but here's the deal. It's a lot of fun to plan a book. It's a lot of fun to outline a book. It's a lot of fun to write a book. It's not a lot of fun to finish a book. Because you got to think, I mean, I have to remind myself I just got done writing this thing last month. But it seems like forever ago. And then there's all of this other stuff that's involved in the process. There's layout, and there's edit notes, and there's rewrites, and there's corrections, and fact checking, and all that sort of stuff. There's just so much to this process that's not a lot of fun in the end. Now, we'll get the book printed. There'll be a lot of fun. I'll get out and sign books and see your smiling faces, and I'll get all these great pictures on Christmas Day of people that got their book, and that means a lot to me. It really does. That never gets old, ever. And for the last few Christmases, there have been a lot of people who have gotten my books, and it means a lot to me. It really does. I said it from the bottom of my heart. One of the fun things, too, about that, too, and we'll kind of take a little bit of a joke here. One of the fun things for me is when I'm out at book signings, I'll be at Mistletoe Marketplace or Celebration Station, and some Ole Miss wife or daughter will buy Flim Flam just because it has Flim Flam on it, and they think it's it's a book about Ole Miss, but I don't think it's the one they want, and they buy that for their dad or husband or whatever for Christmas, and I can only just kind of laugh to myself as I guess in some ways I'm kind of the Grinch that steals Christmas. They open up that book and they're all like, they open the package, like, oh, what is this? And it's Flim Flam. Merry Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas. But no, you guys are great, and I love getting those pictures on Christmas morning. It's kind of like a secondary Christmas. You know what I mean? Like I have that great time with my family, and then when I get a chance to kind of plug back into social media, it's fun to know that my work is part of your Christmas celebration, and so I do take that to heart. It's never anything that gets old hat for me. I don't know how long this is going to last. That's one thing I've learned about life, and maybe through my life of recovery, but the only thing constant in life is change. So I don't know. I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know how long they'll continue to publish my books. And contrary to popular belief, I've only self-published one. That's a book of poetry. You can find that on Amazon or Books A Million, BarnesandNoble.com. It's Blooms of Oleander. Still doing really well. Thank you very much for all your support. But I don't know. I mean, you go through these phases in life. For 10 years there, I did multiple football combines around the state, and I thought I'd probably always do that. And then I kind of reached the point I didn't want to do that anymore. So I don't do that anymore. There was a time I coached high school baseball, and I thought, this is great. Probably did this for a long time. Did it for 4 years and decided, you know what, I want to go watch my kid play college ball, so I don't coach anymore. Used to coach youth soccer. Probably have coached youth soccer, I think, about 15 years of my life. Thought, you know what, and one day when I get all these kids out of the house, I'll probably go coach soccer again. Probably pick up a travel team somewhere just because I love the game. But you never know. You think you've got life figured out, and sometimes life throws you curveballs. And you got to be able to adjust. And so I've learned to just kind of enjoy every phase of life. I've done my best in every respect to try to get as much value and happiness out of this life as I possibly can. Because I still feel like I'm living on borrowed time, but I enjoy this. I enjoy writing the Mississippi State story. When I first moved to Starkville back in 2014, a lot of people said, well, what are you going to do now that you're here? I said, I'm going to write the Mississippi State story. I'm going to write it on Gene's page, but I want to write books. I want to do the historical stuff. I want to be able to tell our story because we have been so unfairly represented in Mississippi's literary heritage. I want to tell our story. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know what to do. I was just kind of sitting around waiting to get discovered, I guess. And eventually, Paul Brown reaches out to me and says, hey, got some funding and some ideas for this book if you want to write it, and Flim Flam was born. And then Flim Flam sold really, really well, contrary to popular belief. They wanted me to write a sequel to Flim Flam. My heart just wasn't. I started to write it, and my heart just wasn't in it. And so I wrote Stark Villains. And it was so much fun, like being able to talk to all these former players about their experiences and all these big games that I was interested in. A lot of my childhood heroes. Had a chance to interview John Bond. I know John, and John takes my call, answers my text. But when I was a kid, John Bond was my hero. And I had the opportunity to write about him winning and losing Egg Bowls. It's a privilege, it really is. Then, of course, Dark Villains did so well. They said, hey, let's capitalize on this and write a sequel. So I did. Wrote Alpha Dogs. That was my quarantine project, and it was fun. It was a blast. And again, 7 baseball stories in there. Mitch Moreland, Ted Milton, Jeg Mangum, Rafael Palmeiro. 12-year-old me would be awfully impressed. But I don't know how long all this is going to last. So I'm going to appreciate every single day. And so when I was going through that book yesterday, I'm reading through this. I'm like, man, this is actually really good. Which is progress for me because I'm usually such a critical thinker about my own work. I make mistakes. Sometimes too, I'll pull up an old article on Gene's page as a reference, and I'll find a mistake I made, and I'll go fix it, maybe 8 or 9, 10 years old, knowing nobody else is ever going to see it, but it matters to me. But I worked through all that stuff, and I was like, I want this book to be as close to perfect as it can be. This book's important to a lot of people. I mean, this is a keepsake. This isn't just like, you read a good story and you pass this book along to a friend. I mean, this is a book you keep. This is a book you put up on your mantle, your bookshelf. Lay it on your coffee table. Going to have color pictures too, just so you guys know. Never done that before. That's one of the reasons the book's a couple dollars more expensive. It's also the longest book that I've written. I think they told me yesterday it's 328 pages. So usually I come in around 300 pages. So you're getting basically, a couple of extra chapters in this deal. The chapters are only 24 chapters plus an epilogue. But, when I wrote Flim Flam, a lot of those chapters were around 2,500. I don't think there's any of these less than 3,000. And there are a couple of them that are 5,000 and 6,000 words. I mean, there's a lot of words in this thing. It's been one of the greatest joys of my life to write this thing. And I can't wait for you guys to hold it in your hands and be able to give it to your friends and family and see the smiles on their faces. Because we're in this thing together. I just happen to be fortunate enough to be in the position to write the story. It's our story. It's my name on the book. But it's our story, and that's our experience. And I want to thank John Cohen and Chris Lamonis, Coach Ron Polk, Brandon Langlois, everybody involved, Mississippi State sports, athletics, for their assistance, their cooperation, getting this thing done. I worked really hard on this because I wanted to make sure we got it out in time for Christmas. And so that looks to be the case. So, we'll have that for you here very, very soon. And the sooner the better. And I'll sleep really good tonight. Not just because I was up till 4 in the morning, but also, too, it's just that feeling of accomplishment. You know what I'm saying? And we got to get on the road to Memphis. Looking forward to that. We'll talk a little more about the game and about what's coming up in the SEC in the next segment of the show. Our good friends at Bulldog Burger Company. I had lunch there. I had dinner there earlier this week. I love Bulldog Burger Company, and you will too. When I asked my youngest kid, who's the only one at home now, I'm almost an empty nester. And what do you want? Bulldog Burger. Hey, do you want? No, Bulldog Burger. Hey, I was thinking that Bulldog Burger. What do you want? I don't know. Just give me a Bulldog Burger. What do you? Anything. Whatever. Just give me whatever. Give me what I like. And that's the great thing about a place like Bulldog Burger Company is I know that there's a lot to choose from there, whether it be the sweet heat chicken sandwich or those great restaurant quality hamburgers. If you're like me, I like to experiment a little bit. I do love the pimentology at bacon. I had that earlier this week. The kid, sometimes he'll go with the Bulldog. Other times he gets a smokehouse. He's big on the Bryant. I think you kind of go through phases. You know what I'm saying? So find your own favorites. Satisfy your own hunger as well as your kids. Because I can promise you, all of my friends that have kids always tell me Bulldog Burger is their favorite place to go. And rightfully so. 3 great locations to serve you right here on University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, and then the brand new one, Lake Harbor Drive there in Ridgeland. Go by and see them. You'll be glad you did. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. Apparently, my last show hurt some Memphis Tiger fans' feelings, and I really don't know what I said that was so offensive. There's somebody who didn't care for the comment about Southern Miss. Memphis and Southern Miss are comparable. Memphis has had more success in recent years, but as far as the level of talent, you're comparable. And I'm sorry if that's a harsh reality. I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way. But, teams like Mississippi State and Ole Miss shouldn't lose to Memphis and Southern Miss. Now, sometimes we do, but we shouldn't. Usually it's when, Memphis or Southern Miss has a really, really good team and maybe we're not quite as strong, but, it happens. Memphis beat that 2015 Ole Miss Sugar Bowl team, so it happens. And so I'm in no way, throwing shade at the University of Memphis or Coach Silverfield, anybody up there. We got some, I'm a Starkville High School parent. We got some jackets on that roster. Rodriguez Clark is up there, Joel Clemens. I wish those guys the absolute best, man. Absolutely. Now, I don't want them to win this weekend, but I want them to have, a big year, big career, meet their wives, get their college degree, go on and have a great life. I don't have any burr in the saddle about Memphis by any stretch of the imagination, but I do expect State to win the ball game. I do think weather will be a bit of a factor tomorrow, though. It's going to be a factor kind of all across the area, starting Saturday afternoon. And so we'll see how that kind of affects the game. I think it might keep the score down a little bit. I do. I really do. I think it'll keep the score down some. And again, Seth Hennigan done a great job for Memphis so far. He will see a defense unlike anything that he has seen so far this year. How will he react? I think Zach Arnett is really good at disguising coverages and blitzes and kind of making quarterbacks hang on to the football. And so I do expect to get there and into the backfield and make some sacks. Now, the flip side of that, too, is that this Memphis offense is the most prolific thing that we have seen this year, too. I mean, they're among the top 10 in most statistical categories nationally. It's a team that scored a lot of points, put up a lot of yards. It's no fluke. These guys know what to do offensively. Now, what does that mean, when the defensive players are bigger, faster, and stronger than what you're used to? So we'll see. But somebody shared a post on Gene's page from our Memphis 247 site. And again, I got no problem with opinions. I mean, I've got alligator skin. He said, it's a Power 5 bias. It's got nothing to do with having a Power 5 bias. It doesn't. But here's the reality. The reason you remember when a G5 team beats a Power 5 team is because it's not supposed to happen. It does happen on occasion. It may happen tomorrow. I don't expect it. But Memphis is certainly capable of beating Mississippi State, especially if State goes out there and doesn't play well. What I think our defensive unit continues to improve. I think you saw that last week. But it was just enough plays, in the first and fourth quarters to kind of get you, get your attention a little bit. You had some teachable moments. You give up 10 points in that ball game. And one of them really is due to a bust in coverage. And I give Arnett a lot of credit, too. I don't know that I've ever been around a coach like Zach that when people bring up plays, the first thing he says, it was a bad call. It was a bad call. It was a bad call. I got to do a better job. Put us in the right defense. Not a lot of coaches do that. Now, as well as I do, he's protecting his players there because sometimes there is a bust in coverage. But I like it. I like the fact that Arnett's kind of a player's coach because he holds those guys accountable now. And most of you have never been to practice. That's an intense joker in practice, and he will get after them now. And I'm not saying getting after them in a disrespectful way, but he gets their attention. He coaches them. But yet, when we get in the media, one of his guys has a bust on a play. What does he say? Hey, it's my fault. Should have called a different defense. Whether that's true or not, I respect it. I think Zach Arnett will have a good game plan together against the University of Memphis. I think they will go out and look for a way to try to confuse the young freshman quarterback at Memphis, who is extremely talented. But he hadn't seen anything like this before. You never know where the pressure's coming from. There are times that we'll show man coverage, and you get your pre-snap read, and we're actually in zone. There are times it looks like we're in zone, and you're thinking, okay, they're going to drop 8. Next thing you know, there's 2 guys coming you weren't expecting. And so Zach mixes it up a lot. So I don't have any doubt whatsoever that Arnett will have a game plan capable of shutting down Memphis. They're going to score a little bit. So I don't know if shutting them down is even the right label. I think it's really one of those deals where, you get you just want to slow them down. You're not going to shut them down. This team is prolific. They're going to be able to put some points on the board. We'll see how things progress. I think the Mississippi State offense, if we had a dry track, I would probably feel even better about the offensive prognostications. I think with weather being a bit of a factor, that could be an issue too. And of course, that means that everybody's going to get on the message boards and again, Rogers this, Rogers that. I think Will's going to do a good job. I think the Memphis pass defense, and it's one of those things too that I kind of laugh about the Memphis posters. It's like 128 out of 130 is not a matter of opinion. When you were the 128th worst passing defense, and granted it is a small sample size, okay, that they'll improve from that. But it is what it is. It's not a matter of opinion. It's math. You've allowed the 128th, or excuse me, the third most passing yards in Division I football. That is not debatable. That is not a situation where I'm just kind of pulling something out of my hat here. It is what it is. We all saw what happened last weekend against Arkansas State. And if you didn't have doubts about your defense last week, you might want to check yourself a little bit. Now, I expect them to play better this week because you learn and get better. But at the same time, too, do you think Arkansas State's got better skilled people than Mississippi State? I would say no. And so I think this boils down to what Mississippi State does and how well Mississippi State executes. I don't think this is a situation where State can just kind of show up and go through the motions and win the ball game. I do expect State to win. I think State will cover. I think State will actually win by a couple possessions. Let's call it 31-20, something like that. 31-17. I do expect Memphis to score some. I don't think they score a lot. And again, I think that probably the weather kind of keeps the offensive explosion down on both sides a bit. So we'll see how things go. But I do expect State to win the ball game and advance to 3-0. And again, this is a good Memphis team. I expect them to be in a ball game. I think they'll be really good in their league. And again, no disrespect intended whatsoever for Memphis. But there are some of you that are a lot like Southern Miss fans in the respect that you've got this incredible inferiority complex that, it's like, oh, if we don't just say glowing things about your team, that we're biased against your team. I mean, just the reality of it is that it really should be a rare thing for a G5 team to beat an SEC team. That's not to say that Memphis isn't capable of winning the ball game. They certainly are. But nobody's going to say, oh, yeah, this is how it should happen. It's just like last weekend, where so many people, saying, oh, NC State should run over Mississippi State. Well, why? Well, they looked so good against South Florida. Yeah, South Florida won one game last year, and that was against an FCS team. So what's your other reasoning? Well, Mississippi State didn't look real good against Louisiana Tech. Well, actually, State looked pretty good other than a couple bad plays here and there. You got a pick six here and a couple big plays on defense. You can clean that stuff up. Everybody gets better. And NC State wants to run the football. Did you look at the rushing yards last year against Zach Arnett's defense, despite the fact that he had a shoestring roster? Did you look at that stuff? Because football games are about matchups. Football games are about matchups. And teams like Mississippi State that are good against the run will make you one-dimensional. This is not a great Mississippi State team. I think it could be a really good team. I think it's a solid bowl team. But it's not a great team. You still got some great players, especially on defense. I think that's where your better players are, to be honest with you. And so this game is going to be decided. I don't really think when Mississippi State is on offense. I think it's going to be decided when Memphis is on offense. If Memphis can consistently move the ball and sustain some drives, it's going to be an interesting day. If the Mississippi State defense can get some 3-and-outs, it should be a good day for Mississippi State. But again, the line on this game is 3.5 in favor of State. I mean, it's basically a pick 'em. I mean, honestly, you're talking a one-possession game. So, I think it's just one of those deals where we got to go up there and play well. And as long as we do, we're going to win. If we go down there and don't play well, and they do, well, it's going to be a frustrating weekend on the message boards. Social media is not going to be any fun. I just don't think it's going to happen, though. I think State will find a way to win this game. All right, let's look around the league. New Mexico at A&M. You saw this about A&M, right? A&M struggled last week against Colorado. I think even at full steam that A&M is going to struggle against teams that can actually play a little defense. But, Haynes King now has the broken ankle. Don't know how long he's out, but I tell you, that's a tough injury for a quarterback. Difficult to come back from that in the same year. So Zach Calzada has the cadence. Completed less than 50% of his passes last week. Pardon me. So now you got to figure this thing out. And so this is a good week for Calzada. It's kind of a hapless opponent. It's home. You survived a very difficult, road trip to Colorado last week, kind of thrown to the wolves, unprepared. You had the full week of practice with the ones. So I do think they'll be better. I do think this A&M team is overvalued at number 7. And I think they're going to lose some ball games. And I think the fact that you're having your number 2 quarterback out there, despite what people would try to suggest, is a negative thing. If he was the better quarterback, he would have been starting. But it won't show up this week. I mean, I think this is a blowout by every stretch of imagination. Again, it's home, and I think if I'm A&M, you got to get Spillers rolling, man. I mean, that's your best player. That's the best player on your roster. The guy is a future pro. You've got to let him be more involved. And you get a big lead here, and then you let Calzada just kind of run the show, and you rotate some younger guys in later in that ball game, and you save some wear and tear on the starters because it's going to be a long year, and you're going to have to run the football. All right, UT Chat at Kentucky, and so the Kentucky hype will continue for another week. And again, I give Kentucky credit. They got ahead 14-0 on Mizzou. They ended up being a great ball game. Kentucky wins the game though. And you remember I picked Mizzou to win the game, but give Kentucky credit. And they did a good job throwing the ball downfield. It'll be a blowout again this weekend. UT Chat at Kentucky. It's one of those games too. They'll probably second half it's mainly just letting the kids play, but. Again, that'll be an absolute blowout. And there's a lot of games like that. I hate to call them bad games because after, having a reduction in college football last year and all the restrictions we had, I don't know that there are any bad games. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's some games that are going to be blowouts, going to be lopsided, but I don't know that I would consider any game a bad game anymore. SEMO is at Mizzou. Look for Mizzou to bounce back there. I won't be the least bit surprised, though, if SEMO hangs around for just a little bit. But again, I like this Missouri team. A little disappointed they didn't win last week, but again, I still believe they're going to upset somebody in the East. Eli Drinkwitz's a good coach. He really, really is. And, it all happened so quick. Satterfield leaves, and the next thing you know, Drinkwitz is the guy, and now he's in a Power 5 conference too. So, but I really like him. Really do. Maybe he can hire Scott Satterfield to be his OC. Tennessee Tech at Tennessee. Tennessee got exposed defensively last week, and I really thought, listen, the quarterback play at Tennessee is horrendous. You got guys running wide open in the secondary, and you're overthrowing them by 5 and 10 yards. It's, that Milton's got to be better. In order for Tennessee to take a step and get ready for SEC play, he has got to connect on those passes. And I don't know if the game is just kind of speeding him up a little bit, and he's an incredible athlete. Does a great job, and he's got the arm. That's the thing. It's not a matter of not being able to get it there, not having the confidence. It's just a matter of touch, just a matter of accuracy. And that's reps. But you got to get better. But it won't matter this week. I mean, Tennessee should just smash Tennessee Tech. I wonder, if Ole Miss fans, when they see that name pop up, when they just see Tennessee Tech on the SEC football schedule, I wonder if a chill runs down their spines because of losing that baseball regional at home a couple years ago to Tennessee Tech. I often wonder those kind of things. Because anytime that I see the Maine Black Bears logo, I just want to vomit. I do. I wonder if they feel the same way. Are they blacked all that stuff out? Tennessee Tech was good. They could swing it. All right, probably the game of the week. Alabama is at Florida. Listen, I think this is actually going to be a close game, but I don't think it's going to be a competitive game. And what I mean by that is I think Alabama will get up in the first half and then take control and just kind of manage. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. But Dan Mullen always freezes against Alabama. Does he not? The 2017 year was the best year best chance we had to beat them outside of maybe 14. 14 we go up there and Dak has a couple bad series and throws a couple of picks, and he threw them. It wasn't like they just confused him. He just he was off target. We should have beat them at their place in 14. We absolutely should have. But we certainly should have beat them in 17 here, and we blew it. And Dan Mullen is a big reason why, because he got so conservative in the fourth quarter. We started playing not to lose, and we ended up losing the ball game. So I expect that to continue, and I think Nick Saban just kind of has Dan Mullen's number. Now, Dan will have some wrinkles, and he'll run some things, try to get the crowd involved. It's a tough ticket to get. Number 1, Alabama coming in. I like Alabama. Again, I think it's a close game, but I think it's a game where Alabama's probably in control for the final 3 quarters. It'll be interesting. That game will be going on around the same time that we're playing. So we won't get a chance to watch that. Maybe a good DVR opportunity. All right, Georgia Southern is at Arkansas. Arkansas surprised me a little bit last week. And maybe Texas surprised me. Maybe Texas surprised me because of the fact that they're not what we think they should be. But take nothing away from Arkansas. They dominated the football game. Absolutely did. And they ran it well. You kind of like to see that. And with Sam Pittman being an offensive line guy, he wants to have that physical offense where they kind of control the line of scrimmage, just kind of pound people. I think that's what you saw last week. And I thought Texas looked really soft against Arkansas. I thought Arkansas was the more physical team, especially late. I thought they really wore Texas down. And so this week will be another week for Arkansas. Georgia Southern coming in. I don't think this will be – I think it'll be a blowout, but I think Arkansas will manage a game a little differently. Probably just get some younger guys some reps in that second half. That's one of the reasons you play these games. But Georgia Southern likes to run the football a lot, so they could probably shorten the game a little bit, probably manage to score a little bit better. But again, I like Arkansas big in this thing. I don't think it's a 56-10 type ball game, but it could be. It absolutely could be. I think Arkansas is feeling it right now. They're ranked 20th in the country. I think a lot of people believe Sam Pittman's making a lot of people look really foolish. I know when they hired him, I think everybody's like, what? They hired Georgia's O-line coach. You kidding me? Well, they did. And Sam and him had some struggles down the stretch, but a lot of that was kind of related to COVID. It wasn't necessarily a reflection of Sam Pittman. They had a lot of issues on the roster down the stretch. Well, now that everybody's healthy, they've had a complete offseason. Arkansas looks pretty good. South Carolina at Georgia. Georgia's got to figure this quarterback thing out, but I don't think you can go wrong either way. South Carolina got behind last week. The East Carolina had to dig themselves out of the hole, and they did. So the Fighting Shane Beamers are now 2-0. Well, that'll change this week. They got to go to Athens and play between the hedges. But Georgia, top-ranked defense in the country. And I don't know that South Carolina's ready for that. You're 2-0, and you've got some confidence, but listen, Georgia's a different animal. I mean, Georgia could win the whole thing this year. I've got them winning the SEC. Well, then we'll kind of see how the playoff thing looks out. I think Georgia wins the conference. I think they win big this week. Georgia got the offense going last week. Of course, 10-7 winners or 10-3 winners against Clemson. It was a low-scoring game. They put up some points last week. And, I thought UAB might hang around for maybe a quarter and a half. No chance of that. Georgia absolutely rolls over them. I think it's going to be a lot closer to UAB than it is to Clemson for South Carolina this week. I think Georgia will get after them pretty good. And South Carolina fans will hate to lose, but they get it. They understand it's a rebuild. And nobody really expects them to go compete with Georgia. But you got to like the fact that Shane Beamer's team's got some moxie about them. They didn't quit last week. And that's one of the things that happens when you have guys that are from a culture that is used to losing. The next thing you know, they get behind in a ball game and they start feeling like, well, here we go again. So credit Shane Beamer and the staff for kind of keeping those guys engaged, and they find a way to win that ball game. Auburn at Penn State, another great game here. And as I said in the Gene's Page article, I just don't know how good Auburn is. I mean, there's just no way to really gauge it at this point. They have played absolutely nobody. And now they're going to go on the road and play the number 10 Penn State. I don't know how good Penn State is. But I know James Franklin is a great motivator. I know that he will have that team ready to go. I know it'll be a great atmosphere. Penn State, that's one of those venues before I die I want to go visit. I want to go see a game at Penn State. I'd love to see Mississippi State play at Penn State. But even if that doesn't happen, I'd love to be able to go up there when they do the whiteout, and just kind of enjoy Happy Valley. I'd love to be able to go. When I was a younger kid, Penn State was my second favorite team. Used to have a Penn State jersey. Like Todd Blackledge. Like those guys a lot. But here's the deal. I just don't know what we know for sure about Auburn. They have scored a lot. I don't think they're going to score a lot this week. I think Penn State finds a way to win this game. But if Auburn does win it, what a huge, huge win for the Tigers. I'll be surprised if it happens, though. But I do think Auburn offensively is rejuvenated. I think they believe in the scheme. And I think they've had a couple of dress rehearsals to kind of work out the kinks. And then we'll kind of see how things kind of move forward from there. But I do like Penn State. Now, Central Michigan at LSU. There's a couple things that I want to say about this ballgame. Number one, LSU has not looked good in either of their first two games, even in the McNeese State game. Remember, it was 17-0 in the third quarter? I don't know if maybe Ed's just trying to play it close to the vest or whatever. But listen, if they do that against Central Michigan this week, they're going to get beat. You say, well, Steve, Central Michigan – 1-1 team. Yeah, they lost at Mizzou 34-24 to open the year. They won last week against Robert Morris, but it's a 45-0 deal. Now, what's interesting too is Jim McElwain wasn't with them when they went to Missouri. Jim McElwain's the head coach of Central Michigan, and then Jackson Sermon is the quarterback there. And so this is a guy that knows how to get things moving. This is an offensive-minded coach that's done some big things in his career. So I don't know how much we really know about Central Michigan yet, but I believe they're capable of going in there and at least making LSU uncomfortable. We'll see how things go. But I won't be the least bit surprised if we look up at halftime and, Central Michigan's within a score. And then the LSU fans are losing their minds over on the message boards and on social media. I don't think this is a really good LSU team. I think they're a good team because of their athleticism and because of their recruiting rankings, because they've gone out and recruited some really good players. I think they have a lot of individual talent. I don't know collectively what kind of team this is. And I think that's the thing we kind of look at as we move forward is what's going to happen to this team once you get into SEC play. They've got some offensive skill. You'd like to think that they could piece some things together, but I won't be the least bit surprised if Central Michigan really makes a game of this thing. Tulane's at Ole Miss, that may be the most entertaining game of the weekend. I mean, honestly, especially if you're not emotionally invested in the outcome, and I know most Mississippi State people are, you're pulling hard for Tulane. But if you just want to watch a fun game, this is probably the one, because I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in this game. Ole Miss has been pretty prolific offensively, as expected, and that's kind of been the case no matter who the head coach has been the last few years. But here's the deal. Tulane went to Oklahoma in week 1 and nearly pulled off the upset against the number 2 team in America. They will not be intimidated going into Oxford, nor should they be. The Oklahoma defense, a lot better than the Ole Miss defense. I'm sure Tulane's probably thinking we can get this one. Tulane put up 69 points last week. Let's be honest. Come on, Morgan State. But it's 69-20. That didn't really impress me. But going on the road to Norman and putting up 35, yeah, I think that's pretty significant. That's a night game, so it's ESPN2. You got a chance to get home, probably watch that after you watch your Bulldogs play. I think Ole Miss wins the game just because I think in the end they've got a little more offensive skill. But I think Tulane is going to make this thing entertaining. I mean, this could be, a 38-35, 45-35 type game. I think it's going to be a blast, especially if Tulane wins. But I do think Ole Miss will have just enough. I think being at home, being, kind of like the Mississippi State-Memphis thing, even though I think Tulane's probably better than Memphis, but similar situation. I think in the end, Ole Miss will find a way to out-athlete Tulane. But if you're Ole Miss, you can't let them hang around. Because you know what happens with your defense. Your defense is going to lay down. That's what they do. That's all they've known. Oh, we went out and got this grad transfer. Great. He won't change the culture. The culture will change him. And so I think, again, I expect Tulane to make a game of this. But, again, I think Ole Miss moves on to 3-0. I think most people expect that. I think there are a lot of Mississippi State people that are kind of hoping that's not the case. But I think if all things being equal, you look at this and say, you know what, Ole Miss is the better team, and they should win at home. Stanford at Vanderbilt. Vandy got a win last week. Congratulations to them, their first since 2019. And it took a last-second field goal, but they did it. They figured it out. They made it happen. They're going to host the Stanford Cardinal. And it's kind of interesting, too. Shouldn't they play every year? Wouldn't you like to see this become a rivalry? And what's so wild about Stanford is, who are they? They lose 24-7 at home to Kansas State and turn around the next week and just destroy USC in the Coliseum 42-28. And the game was really never in doubt. They're going to beat Vanderbilt well. Then they got to turn around and host UCLA. So Stanford's got an interesting little hoe to roll here. But, you just never know which team's going to show up. But if against Vanderbilt, let's be honest. Vanderbilt shouldn't be able to run with those guys. And so I think at the end of the day, Stanford wins the game handily. So here are your winners this week. Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Penn State, LSU, Ole Miss, and Stanford. So there you go. That's kind of how I see it. You may disagree, and that's okay. I've missed a couple this year already. A lot of these toss-up games sometimes that kind of determines kind of how the cow eats the cabbage, right? Is Florida capable of beating Alabama? I don't think so. It's like we look at these games and you think, could Auburn go in and beat Penn State? I don't expect it, but there's a part of me that says, that could happen. I just don't think Florida and Dan Mullen can beat Alabama, even in the swamp with 100,000 people, and they're all wearing orange. I think number one, Nick Saban coaches his team for these moments to go on the road and make people be quiet. And I think Dan Mullen is a guy that, I think in the bright lights, he tenses up for some reason against Saban. It didn't always be that. It's not always like that. I mean, he beat Georgia when he was here, beat Tennessee, beat Michigan, and you can say, well, Steve, these weren't great teams. Well, they still count. But the reality of it is for some reason, Nick Saban just kind of has Dan Mullen's number. And there have been some ugly losses in the Dan Mullen-Nick Saban head-to-head matchups over the years. I don't think this is going to be one of them. But I just, I may be completely wrong come Sunday, but I just don't think Florida can beat Alabama without a lot of help from Alabama. And I know they're number 1 versus number 11. I know Florida really made it interesting in the SEC championship game last year, and I think that's part of the motivation for Nick Saban. He's like, hey, we can't take these guys for granted. Look at what happened last year. We go play those guys in Atlanta, next thing you know, we're fighting for our lives. And so I think that actually will give Florida some confidence, but it'll also give Alabama some focus. But again, I think it's one of those weeks you look at and you say, things ought to go to script. But that's a great thing about college football. We just never know from week to week who's going to do what. Let's look at a couple things here real quick before we move on to the top 10 list. All right, look at some of these stat leaders around the SEC. There are a couple things of note from Mississippi State folks. Granted, we are 2 weeks into the season. Okay, so there is a very small sample size here. So let's not just we're not handing anybody the Heisman Trophy today. So Will Rogers leads the SEC in passing, 664 yards. And, of course, there are some Mississippi State fans out there that want to tear it down and say, well, yeah, he's got more passing attempts than Matt Corral. So what? It is what it is. It's math, not magic. As of now, 664 yards. It may be different tomorrow, because I think Matt Corral's probably going to throw for about 400 against Tulane. Will Rogers might throw for 400 as well. Bryce Young, 571 yards. And then Connor Bazelak, I think, is the guy from Kentucky, from Missouri. Like him a lot. I think he's the most underappreciated quarterback in the league. The guy's quietly off to a good start to the season. But there you go. Your current SEC passing leader, Will Rogers. Matt Corral right there with him, just 2 yards separate him. Rushing, we're not anywhere near that, right? We don't even have anybody anywhere close. And the rushing statistics here, Chris Rodriguez from Kentucky leads the league with 331 yards a game. Tyler Beatty from Mizzou, who's a stud, is second. And then Auburn has back-to-back. Jarquez Hunter, remember him from Neshoba Central? As a freshman at Auburn. Remember that guy? Number 3 rusher in the SEC right now. 257 yards as a freshman. It's crazy to think about that. His name's, KJ Jefferson, number 7 in the conference. Former North Panola standout there. So, some Mississippi guys out there doing some things. Be great if we could have kept all those guys in state. But leading receiver in the league is Dontario Drummond from Ole Miss. Another Mississippi guy from Laurel, 284 yards. Wan'Dale Robinson. We talked about Josh Ali being the only really proven wide receiver at Kentucky. Wan'Dale Robinson off to a big start. 10 grabs, 226 yards, a couple touchdowns. Keyshawn Boutte, number 4. We talked about him. LSU's been really high on him for a while. I think he's probably the next big thing. You got to get all the way down to number 15 before you find a Bulldog on the receiving statistics. And that's really a byproduct of us spreading the ball out so much. Jaden Walley, 108 yards receiving on 9 grabs. So there you go. You get a little. Austin Williams is right there at 16, 8 grabs, 105 yards. Makai Polk right there tied for 21. We got a lot of guys in the top 25, but haven't had that that breakout game yet. We hadn't had that one guy. Makai Polk had 10 catches against Tech, but we hadn't had the guy to really go out there and put up the big, 100-plus receiving yard game yet. So we'll see how that goes. Look at some other numbers here. We'll do this kind of routinely. Maybe on Friday it's a good time for us to kind of take inventory. But looking at some defensive numbers here, there's a few guys in the league that are off to a really big start when it comes to pass rush. We've got a couple guys out there doing a pretty good job. But remember, we didn't record an official sack in week one, so we're not going to be among the league leaders here. But LSU got a couple guys there in the top three, Andre Anthony and Mason Smith. Not a big surprise. Mason Smith, that guy's going to be a future NFL guy. I think we all know that. But Andre Anthony with 4 sacks and then 29 yards off those sacks. So those are not insignificant plays by any stretch of the imagination. Florida defensive lineman Zach Carter off to a good start too with 3 sacks down there. So a handful of guys out there, but I guess State's got 4 guys with 1. Randy Charlton, Aaron Brule, Jaden Crumity, Aaron Odom, kind of spreading the love. We hadn't had our hands on a lot of picks, but the SEC leaders at this point have 2. So whoever we have that has them, including Jalen Green, is tied for second in the league. Again, small sample size here. But Leon O'Neal from Texas A&M got a couple of picks, tied with Jalen Catalan and Jalen Carlisle's of Mizzou. So, again, that'll all kind of come into focus in the weeks ahead. Now, looking at tackles, Bumper Pool. That's right, Bumper Pool from Arkansas. 24 tackles, leads the SEC. 4 solos. Most of those are gang tackles. But that's a guy that's always been around in football. He's been around for a long time, too. And we all know that because everybody remembers that name. It's so unique. But getting down the list here, your leading Bulldog tackler, Fred Peters, 15 tackles. Emmanuel Forbes, a corner, is second on the team and 10th in the SEC with 14. Jed Johnson, largely a reserve for Mississippi State, got a lot of playing time last week when Nathaniel Watson went down, 13 tackles. He's 11th in the conference. You don't think Zach Arnett can coach a little football? How about that? Nate Watson tied for 12th with 12 tackles. So, we got some guys out there making plays. Aaron Brule with 11, kind of quietly kind of putting that together. So we'll kind of see how things progress there with him. But I feel really good about this team's ability to tackle. I feel good about this ability's team to rally to the football. So, I think a team like Memphis is very different than what you've seen. And so there will be some adjustment. Film study will be a big part of this thing. But, I like the chances for State to go win the ball game. And I think, again, because of, Memphis runs a ton of plays. And they want to dink in, dunk in, dink in, dunk in, and then all of a sudden they lure the safeties up and they go over the top. That's what they want to do. Again, I like this Memphis team. My feelings are not hurt that some people think I don't. I don't worry about that kind of stuff. It just doesn't bother me. But it is interesting, to say the least. All right, looking at the offensive numbers, Mississippi State actually towards the bottom offensively. 751 yards. It's good for 12th in the SEC. Florida leading the SEC with 1,219 yards of offense. Ole Miss right there at second, just under 1,200 yards. Then Auburn, Kentucky. And again, some of this has got to do too. And I've had this discussion with some friends here as of late. Ole Miss has put up some big numbers, but who has better wins between State and Ole Miss? Well, I would have to say it's Mississippi State. Louisiana Tech been in 7 straight bowl games. NC State 6 of the last 7. The one year with the outlier was 2019 when Dave Dorian and that staff had a ton of injuries. Then Ole Miss has beat Austin Peay and a kind of a hapless Louisville team. But it'll all come out in the wash. You know what I'm saying? I mean, again, it's early in the year. It'd be nice when we get a chance to go play an FCS team. Maybe it's good to have Tennessee State late just for that very reason. But again, early in the year, but you're starting to see some teams kind of, some stars, I guess, in many respects, kind of beginning to emerge. In case you've forgotten, Charles Cross, the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week last week, and it's amazing. A week before, many of our fans are ready to run him off, and many of them didn't understand too that some of the issues with that twist had to do with the guard not engaging and allowing Charles to get the looper as the guy kind of looped around and stunned around the edge there.
But it's a team game. It's a team concept. You got to figure that pass protection thing out. They did a much better job last week, and then Charles Cross, SEC Lineman of the Week. Didn't give up pressure last week. Interesting too. I watched the Memphis Monday presser. They talked a little bit about pass rush, and you kind of got the sense that they dropped 8 a lot against Arkansas State. And Ryan said, hey, yeah, pass rush is a priority, but it's got to be kind of in conjunction with what we're trying to do defensively. And so if you bring a lot of pressure, that means that you usually have to go man coverage. And so if they're going to bring 5 and sometimes even 4, somebody's going to be open. And so if you do an all-out blitz, you're going to leave your guys on an island. And that's one thing that Will Rogers and Mike Leach have been able to do at Mississippi State. It's when teams go man, we generally make them pay. I don't think that we're going to see hardly any man-to-man coverage this weekend. I don't. It could be a good game for Jaquavius Marks and Dylan Johnson. And that's the thing. Week 1, I thought Marks was outstanding. Week 2, thought DJ was. And that's really exciting that both of those guys can get out there and play at a high level. And back-to-back weeks. Now let's put it all together this week and go win a ball game. And again, this is far from a foregone conclusion that Mississippi State's going to win the game. But I think both of those guys have to be a big part of this thing, whether it be running the football, catching the football. Those 2-back sets, I think, kind of cause some people some pause. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say even the fade route to Heath was in a 2-back set. And so, all of a sudden, next thing you know, you get man coverage outside and you make some plays. And that's exactly what happened there. So, again, it'll be interesting to see how they try to defend Mississippi State. But it's one of those things, too, if you sit in the same defense for long enough, Mike Leach will pick you apart. You got to mix some things up. We saw some of that last week with NC State. They did try to disguise some coverages. Many times it looked like they were in man. They were actually in zone. So there will be some of that this week, too. I don't think there's any question. Let's get to today's top 10 list. I guess before we do, I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you guys, too, you got a chance to win $1 million. I wouldn't be your friend if I didn't tell you about that. You got a chance with DraftKings to get a shot at $1 million. How cool is that? It's time to celebrate. NFL football is here. I know you guys are excited about Dak Prescott, seeing him play again this week. Maybe it's time to put your money where your mouth is. DraftKings is the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. It's putting you in the center of this weekend's action. New customers get a free shot at a $1 million top prize with their first deposit by signing up and using promo code Boneyard. Get in on the action very, very soon. It's simple. You pick your lineup, stay under a salary cap, and see how your team stacks up against competition. Feel the NFL action like never before because every game matters, and you get a free shot at $1 million payday. That's cool. That's life-changing money. How about that? Download the DraftKings app right now, and promo code Boneyard is your way to unlock that opportunity. This week, new customers get that free shot at $1 million, and you can compete for $1 million in prizes across all contests. Enter code Boneyard to get that free shot at a $1 million top prize with your first deposit. That's code Boneyard only at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the National Football League. A minimum $5 deposit is required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for further details. All right, I've told you guys before, I enjoy doing these top 10 lists. And so when I had a chance to partner up with Blair Chandler, Blair said, hey, I'd love to sponsor the top 10 list. I'm a big music guy too, and so we've been able to kind of do that. Now, because of the fact that I had a late night last night, I didn't put the list together. Roy did. I'm not a big country music guy either, but Roy has a friend that is a super fan of the show, of Mississippi State, and of the artists that we're about to discuss. And again, brought to you by the good folks at closeatblair.com. Visit Close at Blair, that's B-L-A-I-R, closeatblair.com, for your mortgage needs. You want to partner with winners? That's what I do, and that's why I picked Blair Chandler. Guy's been my friend a long time. 21 years in the mortgage industry. If you are looking for an opportunity to buy a home, refinance your current home, or perhaps get a home equity line of credit, there's not a loan out there that Blair's unfamiliar with. Many of you have thought, the dream of home ownership is elusive for me, and I don't know that I can do it, Steve. I just got to rent and rent and rent and rent and rent and waste my money. Well, give Blair a chance, because even if he can't get you approved now, perhaps he can get you in a position to get you approved later. There's no point throwing your money away. Visit closeatblair.com, and by being a loyal Boneyard listener, if you just mention Boneyard, he's going to pay for your appraisal. That's right. That's about a $300 value. For more information, give Blair a call. I'm going to give you his personal cell number. This isn't just some number you call and leave a message at some office and nobody gets back to you. This is Blair Chandler. You can text him or you can call him. 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. And, of course, Blair's a Bulldog. And I believe in doing business with Bulldogs whenever you can. I think we should try to keep it in the family as best we can. Closewithblair.com. All right, top 10 list today. And, again, Roy put this list together. And I want to thank you guys, too. So much feedback about the first favorites. I had a lot of people reach out about the most recent list, about the newer bands. I had a lot of people that shared, hey, Steve, listen to so-and-so. Or can you do a top 10 from this band? And a lot of these bands don't have 10 songs out that we could do a top 10 with yet. But a lot of people enjoyed the new rock list. I had people say, you know what, Steve, I had never heard of a lot of these bands. I put the Spotify list on. I was excited. And you should be. That's one of the great things about this exercise with the top 10 list is we get so many people that we can represent on the music side of things, and we can kind of share the joy of music. So again, Roy, because Roy's a friend, Roy felt bad that I was going to be up to the wee hours of the morning. He goes, hey, let me put a list together for you. Let me help out a little bit. So we're going with Eric Church today. Eric Church. He sounds a little bit, I listened to most of these today, because I don't just want to just throw a list out there without at least taking a gander. Sounds a little bit like kind of a poor man's Keith Urban. And I like Keith Urban a lot. I really do. If we haven't done Keith, maybe we should do Keith. I think we've done it, but I don't know that we have. Maybe Roy can check that, and maybe we'll do Keith Urban here in the weeks to come. But here is the Eric Church list. And again, I want to thank Roy for putting these things together. So we're going to go Talladega at number 10. I actually like that song a lot. And a lot of these Eric Church songs, too, are not just the old drinking and partying and stuff. There's a lot of that, too. But a lot of it's about relationships and failed relationships, about who you love. But Talladega is a good one. Smoke a Little Smoke, that's number 9 on the list. Smoke a Little Smoke. You can check that one out. Hell of a View is another one of these relationship songs. I really like that one, too. Listened to that before we did the show. Toes off the ledge, that sort of stuff. It's just kind of about taking a chance on love and on another person and not really listening to other people. And here we are at the top. It's a hell of a view. It's a good track. Mr. Misunderstood. That's the title track off that album, Mr. Misunderstood. Well, I think at some point every guy's felt that way. Even despite our best of intentions, sometimes we are misunderstood. A song about nostalgic, kind of looking back at lost loves, whatever, those I've loved. I kind of feel the same way, too. I don't harbor any ill will or resentment against anybody that shared the path for a while. It didn't work out. Probably worked out for the best. I know it did for me. Next on the list, These Boots. I guess that's going to be number 5 on your list, These Boots. Sinners Like Me is the title of that album. Listened to a couple tracks off that one, and there's a little more guitar on that one, I guess. Again, just a good old Southern song. Number 4 on the list is Drink in My Hand off the album Chief. There's not a lot of party tracks on this one. That's one of them. But, I don't drink anymore. I don't know if I've ever told you that. I don't drink, do drugs anymore. I did enough for all of us back in the early 90s. All right, number 3, Some of It off the Desperate Men album. Some of It, another good track. Yeah, that's one thing I'll say. I don't know who all does the writing for Eric Church. I don't know if he does it all himself or he has a team of writers or a couple writing partners. That's one of the things I respect about Hardy is he writes his own stuff, and he does have a couple guys that work with him, but it's his stuff. But Some of It is a good one. This is one that you listen to the writing and think this is actually pretty clever. Number 2 on the list is Record Year. This is not necessarily a song about optimism. There's a lot that goes wrong in the lyrics of this track, but check that one out. Record Year, also off the Mr. Misunderstood album. But number 1 on the list, according to Roy, is Springsteen. And again, it's another, it's a song about, basically teen romance and things like that. So there you go. That's your top 10 Eric Church list. And again, it's not my list, it's Roy's list. So if it's wrong, you can complain to him. Roy is on Twitter at Dogmatic67. That's DAWGMATIC, Dogmatic67. You can find the list on Spotify by searching for Roy. A lot of you guys do, and you go up and down there and You say, hey, you've never done this one. Follow Roy on Spotify. Follow him on Twitter, and he can kind of keep you up to date. I want to thank our friend Izzy Malderbaum, too, that's done such a good job for us putting these out there, these playlists on iTunes. If you have an idea for the top 10 list, reach out and let me know. And I've got a couple things. I had a couple people reach out and ask about some bands that I don't know if we can put a top 10 together, but we could probably work them in one way or another. And so, again, I appreciate you guys reaching out and kind of sharing your thoughts on the top 10 list. And a lot of support, man. I mean, every so often I get a message, hey, Steve, I wish you could put the top 10 list at the end of the show so I'd have to listen to it. But, then you wouldn't get the wonderful gift of music, right? That's the bigger part of this, right? It's nice to be able to have people turn you on to new tunes. I love finding new bands. And while I'm talking about that, there is a new Southern rock band out of Rome, Georgia, that I really, really dig. And my buddy Blake Dees turned me on to them. It's a band called the Georgia Thunderbolts. Their new album is about to drop now. They've got an EP out right now. Great track on there called Lend a Hand. It is really, really dope. They have kind of a Black Crowes feel to them because they've got a little bit of a rock influence. But the Georgia Thunderbolts. So if you're looking for a new Southern rock band, if you dig Southern rock, give those guys a listen. It's the Georgia Thunderbolts. Really dig those guys a lot. I think I'm eager to hear the rest of the album. I'm really, really excited about this. And I had the EP, and then there's a couple new tracks have been released on the full album. And, of course, most of the songs from the EP are going to be on the full album. But they're with Mascot Records. It's also the same label that has Blackstone Cherry and Shaman's Harvest. And I want to say they've even got Monster Truck. If you don't know Monster Truck, you should. One of my favorite tracks off their catalog is a song called Nobody's Gonna Tell Me How to Live. Love that, man. It's like Southern rock from Canada. But go check them out. That's with Mascot Records, the Georgia Thunderbolts. Next segment of the show brought to you by your friends at Campus Bookmart. Stan and man, Miss Kathy Brown, the lovely, talented Susie, everybody involved will do a good job for you because they love you. They'll treat you like family because in their minds you are family. And they're family to me. Be signing a lot with them here in the holiday season. Looking forward to that. Was hoping to get out and do a bunch of game day signings later in November. You still don't know if that's going to happen. But even if I'm not there, it's worth your time to go by and check them out. A lot of smiling faces, a lot of great Mississippi State merch in there. If you can't make it to town, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, again, we're saving you money. Promo code BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. You heard that right. BSR, Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that gets you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any orders less than $50, absolutely incomplete. Mom, let me tell you this, it's starting to turn cool. Maybe you've noticed. It's time to get those kids some National Championship or some Bulldog hoodies. Get it done. You'll be glad you did. Again, that's campusbookmart.net, promo code BSR. Now, if you follow me on social media, you've noticed here in the last couple of weeks, I've been doing some articles for the M Club. The Hall of Fame Gala is coming up, and it's been so much fun to talk to former players. I had a chance to talk to Billy Jackson, Bobby Thigpen, many others. It's been wonderful. And I had a chance to reconnect with Diggy in the Left Field Lounge earlier this year, talk a little bit about baseball. And that article is up today on genespage.com. But I want to tell you, if you are interested in that, and many of you have thought, I love Mississippi State. I don't get a chance to get out and go do a lot of this stuff. Listen, next Friday, that's, again, we're going to be getting ready to play a football game here, but it's next Friday, a week from today, we're going to have the 2020 and 2021 Hall of Fame Gala in the Humphrey Coliseum. We didn't get to do it last year because of COVID stuff, but cocktails and hors d'oeuvres will begin at 5:30. The program begins at 7, and they're asking you to wear business attire, okay? So don't show up in, T-shirt, pair of cut-off blue jean shorts, flip-flops. We're trying to be dignified here. And so there are going to be people making nominations soon for next year's class. But this year's, the 2020 and the 2021 group are all going to go in together. And it's worth your time and effort to go check it out. You can visit the MSU Bulldog Club. And again, that's msubulldog.com, for more information. And there are a lot of great names in our Hall of Fame. And I think sometimes we don't always fully appreciate that, and that's one of the reasons I started doing the final segment of the show in Portico. But let me encourage you, if you're going to be in the area, make plans to come be a part of that. And there's a ticket information here. Let me give you what we can here, just so you guys know. It's probably too late for some of this because we're a week away, but you can be a Bulldog sponsor for $1,000 and you get recognition in the event signage and special recognition on the website. And you get 8 tickets for that. A ticket to the gala is $100 a piece. So even if you don't want to be a sponsor, but you just want to come be a part of that, it's $100. M Club member, if you're a member of the M Club, your tickets are only $50. That's it. Must be eligible. Must be a dues paying member of the M Club, and price reserved for a member and one guest. So there will not be physical tickets. Access to the event will be protected at the door. There'll be a list there, and for all about who's paid, and you retain your receipt for your records, but it's not required to get in. So you can get more information again, msubulldogclub.com, and that's going to be a great event. And I got an article coming up early next week with Charles Weatherly, and Charlie's a guy that has basically dedicated his life to Mississippi State athletics. And it's interesting, he's from Ripley, Mississippi, but he made the move to Starkville. It had been his dream to play football at Mississippi State. His dad came to Mississippi State, had all these great stories about being here and the experiences he had. And so, like a lot of us, he was raised in a Mississippi State family. And so when given the opportunity, there was no decision to make. He was coming to Mississippi State, and he had a chance to play football here. Was part of some good teams that did some interesting things. They kind of laid the foundation for some better years. Darryl Royal was the coach for a couple of years, and then, Wade Walker. But, our better days were ahead. And I have so much respect for those people that came to Mississippi State. And, when there wasn't necessarily, a lot of optimism about winning seasons, but, Charlie grew up, listening on the radio to guys like Shorty McWilliams and Harper Davis and Art Davis and Eagle Motlich and people like that we don't normally talk about a lot. A lot of it, these guys are kind of aging out a little bit. And so it's so much fun to be able to talk to them. And especially a guy like Charlie Weatherly, he'll sit there and just tell you. He goes, man, it was one of the highlights of my life. The first time that I slipped on that Mississippi State jersey. He had grown up his whole life hearing about Mississippi State, and to be able to go out there and represent his family and his community as part of our football program, and he took that privilege to heart. And that's one of those things, too, in this day of entitlement, there's a lot of young people out there, and I'm not going to paint them all with a broad brush, but a lot of people out there that feel like perhaps Mississippi State owes them something. That they didn't offer me. Well, maybe we didn't offer you because you didn't fit the scheme, right? We didn't offer you because you weren't quite good enough. But, we've had some guys that have come through here that saw the opportunity to put the maroon and white on. Is an incredible privilege. And all these years later, these guys are so grateful to be remembered and so grateful to have a chance to talk about their experiences. And that's one of the reasons that I wrote Stark Villains and Alpha Dogs. Not just because I wanted to document, these great stories for all of us to kind of sit around and talk about at cocktail parties, but, many of our great Bulldog heroes of yesteryear are dying off. And I feel so incredibly privileged to know that I was able to interview Harper Davis before he passed away. To be honest with you, when I began to do my research, I wasn't sure he was still living. And then somebody reached out to me. It was so ironic. I was researching Harper Davis, and out of the blue, I get a message and somebody says, hey, I wish you would interview Coach Davis for your next book. And it was just one of those things, almost like a God thing, that, it happens. And so next thing you know, we get connected, and I talk to him, and he told me so much about Alan McKean and about, that time in our Mississippi State football history. And we got to capture those stories. When I first began to have these ideas about writing these books, I went and met with Stratton Caratasis, and better known as Strat to you guys. But, I told Strat, I said, we got to get these stories documented before everybody's gone. And there's so many great stories out there that are dead and buried now because nobody had a chance to document them. I've had so many people that have reached out and shared pictures of their grandparents or, and I've used so much of that stuff, but it's also personal to me because I know what Mississippi State means to me. And I think I know what it means to all you guys too. And what we enjoy today, the foundation for that was built by people that didn't have a lot of success, but came to Mississippi State anyway because of their love for this university. And so I think it's important that we honor those people. And I'm so glad that the Hall of Fame is doing this. And there's so many people involved in that process that do such a great job. And one of the things at Mississippi State I think we do a great job of is honor, especially baseball. We honor our baseball greats. I think we do a pretty good job on the football side too. But we've had a greater history in baseball, so maybe it's a little bit easier to do that. But even then, there are some baseball guys that that we don't really talk about. And that's one of the reasons we talk about them on this show. I'm going to try to kind of stick to the stuff in season as we do these features kind of moving forward. But there's just so many players out there that made such great contributions to Mississippi State athletics that I think the new generation needs to know about. And I have so much fun learning about these people and these stories. And people contact me and say, hey, Steve, my grandfather was this guy, and he played with this guy. He had some amazing stories, and they share those stories with me. And true or untrue, I want to know them all. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's so much of our history that is kind of lost. There's so much of that wasn't documented. And a lot of it's because, too, maybe we were the ag school. We didn't do as good a job with record keeping. And I've looked through a lot of those old reflectors, and it's amazing. And I wish at one point they would digitize those and put them online like they did the Revelry. I go back and look at those old Revelries, too, and find some stories in there occasionally. And sometimes you can confirm some things. And let me just say this, too, and maybe this sounds a little bit off color, but guys, college girls have always been attractive. They absolutely have. You go back and look, those old, albums from the 50s and 60s, and you're like, man, she looks like somebody else that I know. It's incredible that all that stuff has kind of been preserved. And so my hope at some point is that we can get those reflectors digitized and get them online, so you guys and myself can go and kind of review them whenever we want to. I think that'd be a wonderful thing. Again, they did it for the Revelry, and I can't imagine it would be more difficult to do it for the Reflector. And I've been so grateful to the people on campus that have allowed me access to those documents to go and kind of read and get some stories. And I've found some things that were kind of buried and lost. And I remember when I wrote about our trip to Jackson, the first time we played Ole Miss in Jackson, and I found a letter to the editor of the Reflector. And it was just some kid. It's some kid, and he didn't even have his full name. His initials were PAP. And he wrote about riding the train and how just about every Mississippi State student went to that game in Jackson. And we showed up down there, and we had a full military parade funeral for Ole Miss football because Ole Miss's football coach quit earlier in the year. They only played a couple of games. They didn't score in either one. They got absolutely destroyed. And we beat them in Jackson, and we didn't have bleachers back then. We were out there playing at the fairgrounds, and so the fans were on the sidelines. And the game got so unruly that some of our fans wandered onto the field. And so they had to stop the game because we're out there talking trash, bobbing, weaving, all that good stuff. But I thought to myself, when I found that letter, I said, I want to publish this. I want to publish this because there's this record of our first ever Egg Bowl in Jackson, Mississippi, a game that we won. And then the great story of us, having the full military parade funeral for Ole Miss football. And somehow, some way, those crazy cadets got a coffin. And they paraded the coffin down Capitol Street with Bully on top. And I said, I've got to capture this for a new generation. And I get chills thinking about it. Some 18, 19-year-old kid just wrote a letter about a ball game to the student newspaper, and then we were able to publish it and share that with the new generation. So, Pap, whoever you are, wherever you are, have no clue who you are. I could probably research the Revelry, maybe find that stuff. Maybe I will. Maybe it'll be a project for me during a bye week or something. Maybe track down the family and make sure they know it was their loved one that wrote the story and that great account of that great moment in our history. But those things excite me. It's not just the Jake Mangums and the Rafael Palmeiros and the Will Clarks. It's the Sammy Ellises. It's the Buddy Myers. It's the Jimmy Bragans. It's the Alex Gramises. It's the Willie Mitchells. It's the Huey Kreitz. It's all those people that are involved, too, that, we just were born a little bit later. But I'm so grateful to them, for what they did for Mississippi State athletics. And I think it's important that as we kind of move forward, and I think the M Club does such a tremendous job with this. We do a good job of honoring people, especially those that are still living. There's so many people that are involved in Mississippi State athletics that have done such a great job for us that it's difficult to get everybody in. But talking to Bobby Thigpen and talking to Charlie Weatherly and
and Billy Jackson, Coach Bob Tyler. It's like, and maybe it's one of those things where you feel like those days are beyond you, but all of a sudden you get a phone call and it says, hey, we're going to put you in the Hall of Fame. It's difficult to describe what that means. Just even talking to Bobby Thigpen, he's like, he'll be back for the alumni weekend, and they're coming the weekend of Kentucky, right? So that's the weekend, too, that we are getting the rings for the kids. What a great idea. It's we're going to give them their rings, and we're going to honor the team on the field during the Kentucky game, and it's alumni weekend. I don't know who put that together, but that's really smart. And so everybody that's involved, everybody that wants to come back for the alumni weekend, will be able to be a part of that celebration. We do it right. There are a lot of people out there that are awfully critical of Mississippi State, even some of our own fans. They find a way, nothing's ever good enough. And listen, I felt that way sometimes too. Sometimes I thought, why do we have to be small time about certain things? But, I think with our leadership now, those days have passed us in many respects. And we still got some catching up to do in some things. But, when it comes to baseball and this sort of stuff, we do it right. And I've seen some comments too. It's like, some people say, oh, we're shortchanging football for baseball. Well, no, that's not true. It's not true at all. And I don't know if you guys know this, Duty Noble Fields are going to pay for itself in time. It's going to pay for itself. It's not like we had Dan Mullen write us a check. Hey, Dan, we can't get you your shoes this year, so we're going to go build a baseball stadium. It's not like that. It's not. I never thought in a million years I'd ever read something like that. It's like, well, yeah, we shortchanged football, but at least we got a baseball national championship. I think, man, thank God we have a national championship in baseball. We made a commitment to baseball before everybody else even took baseball seriously. It's one thing you'll read about in Dog Puff, talking with Ron Polk. Guys, the head baseball coach at the University of Kentucky had to sell insurance on the side to feed his family because they didn't pay him enough to coach baseball in the SEC. And that's in the 1970s. We're not talking about in the 30s or 40s. In the 1970s, a guy had to have a second job when he coached baseball at the University of Kentucky. It's crazy you think about that. And you go back and you think, well, now it makes sense that Kentucky's the only team in the league to never go to Omaha because they were never truly committed to baseball. Well, it changed. Mitch Barnhart's done a good job up there, and I hope Nick makes it. I really do. I'm rooting for Nick Mingione. But yeah, we won a national championship in baseball. We're not done either. Speaking of Diamond Dogs, let's talk about Brooks Bryan. Brooks and his crew with Portico doing a great job, man. Trying to make Starkville an even better place to live. And I've told you guys, and you think I'm joking, I'm not. If I was moving to Starkville now, I would move to Portico. Just the convenience of campus. Because I live out here in the sticks, and so I got to drive to campus, and sometimes that's kind of a pain. But Portico is 1.1 miles from the Mississippi State campus. You turn off of 82 on the 12. You take the first right at Pat Station Road. That'll take you across Old West Point Road. Boom, there you are. It's not far. It's easy to get to. That Walmart neighborhood market's right there just for you. It's wonderful. You don't have to go fight the hustle and bustle at 12. You can go out there and get on the bypass and go around to the big Walmart, go to the movies, whatever you want. Find yourself a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house up to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath house right there at Portico. Conveniently located, wonderful construction. They got that great walking trail out there. Phase 1 is done, and I think last I heard it was one house left. It may be gone now. Maybe you need to call Brooks and check that out. If you're not ready to move yet, maybe you're thinking, you know what, hey, we're going to get to the school year, we're going to move next year. I'm retiring in December, or maybe you just want to get a second home here. And I'm going to tell you, you guys are going to want to come to baseball games. You might as well get ready. We're going to be really good in baseball for a really long time. So if you want more information about Portico, and you absolutely should, I've been by there a couple times. Some of my friends say, hey, what's that place you're always talking about? Let's go check it out. How about that? You go see it for yourself. Maybe it's an investment property for you. Maybe it's your primary residence. Maybe it's an investment property. Brooks can answer all your questions. Again, it's 601-416-8075, 601-416-8075. And if you don't have time to write that number down and you want it, you message me. I'm happy to send it to you. I've had a couple people that have done that. Say, Steve, I'm always driving when the show's going on, so I can't write the number down. What's Brooks Bryan's number? While you're on the phone with him, he might even give you some Mississippi State baseball stories. I guarantee you he's got some interesting stories about Brian Weiss, Richard Lee, probably Chris Lauderhouse too. Chris played at Mississippi State, but Chris is a rebel through and through.
So I'm sure Brooks has some stories about that. So be sure and reach out to him to get more information about Portico. Okay, so our Mississippi State legend of the day. We've talked so much early in the week about Rocky Falker and the big comeback against Memphis back in '74. One of the guys that made a play on that final drive, we had to drive 98 yards and like 3 minutes left to go in the ball game. We had a big play. I believe it was like a 3rd and 20. I think it's like a 3rd and 20 play that Rocky made a completion to Melvin Barkum. And if you watch the video that's out there from MSU Properties today, they talk a little bit about Melvin Barkum, basically having the best vertical leap of his life to haul that thing in. So Melvin Barkum is more than just a guy that made a big catch, though. This guy is very significant not only in Mississippi State history, but in the history of the Southeastern Conference. And so to kind of put things in perspective for you guys, Melvin Barkum was essentially a 5-star quarterback out of Gulfport High School. Everybody in the country wanted him. I understand he had over 50 scholarship offers, including Alabama, Notre Dame, many others. But he wanted to stay closer to home. He chose Mississippi State. Now, at the time that he chose Mississippi State, there were not any black quarterbacks in the Southeastern Conference, despite the fact that many of them had the athletic and the mental acumen to handle a position. Nobody was really given the opportunity. Now, there's been a lot of discussion, and rightfully so, about Condridge at Tennessee. He was the first, but he narrowly beat out Melvin Barkum to being the first black quarterback in SEC history. If my memory serves me correct, I think it's really kind of a matter of hours rather than days or years. I think it's really just a matter of hours. And of course, Mississippi State had Robert Bell and Frank Dowsing here. Of course, Bell from Meridian, Dowsing from Tupelo, and Melvin was a phenomenal player down at Gulfport. But he was the first quarterback. And what's interesting, too, is his roommate was Rocky Falker. And so, and you remember the time in which we're talking about, right? I mean, this is in the early 70s, and, Melvin was part of the consolidation of the schools, I guess the desegregation of the Gulfport schools. And there was a moment there, and I read an article earlier today as I got ready to do some research on Melvin, is that they were having a pep rally. And, of course, the schools had consolidated, and the Gulfport High School brand broke into Dixie. And a lot of the black students elected, they walked out. And before everybody left, there's Melvin Barkum, and Ronnie Cuevas is telling this story, also a Bulldog. And Melvin Barkum, at a brand new school, jumps up on stage and grabs a microphone and asks everybody to stay. Ask everybody to stay to support the football team. They go on to win the ball game, and then Gulfport High School never played Dixie again at a pep rally. And so Melvin was the guy that was bringing change and being a leader very early on. Now, he gets to Mississippi State. Melvin was the quarterback, but eventually lost the job to Rocky Falker. Now, rather than pout and rather than waste him, we played some time at running back. We ended up moving into receiver. He had a brother, Jerome Barkum, that played for the New York Jets for 12 years as a wide receiver. So it wasn't completely unheard of to think that Melvin might spend some time at wide receiver. But he was a phenomenal athlete. Didn't do a whole lot statistically wise in his career here, but really kind of broke a glass ceiling, and he was part of that too. And that's one of those things you look at too. Is one of the things that I'm very proud of when I look at Mississippi State's history, especially when it comes to civil rights, is that more times than not, we've been on the right side of history when it's come to this sort of thing. And I think it's very, very important that we remember guys like Melvin Barkum. And sadly, we did lose Melvin a couple years ago at the age of 63. Passed away, complications from diabetes. And, it's very sad, again, to think about some of these great players that are that have moved on, that not only made an impact at Mississippi State, but on the state of Mississippi and in the Southeastern Conference. Melvin died back in 2017 on February 27th. It's again, it's very, very sad to think about people that had such a profound impact on life are gone so soon. Of course, Frank Dowsing died very early. Robert Bell, thankfully, is still with us. But you begin to think about these things, and a lot of these stories, you got to go dig for them. And I don't know if that's right. You know, I think this stuff needs to be more readily available. It's one of the reasons that I write as much as I do, because I want to capture this stuff and I want to share it. You know, and again, I mean, think about this for a second. You know, back in the early '70s, you know, this is after, you know, our state has kind of been ripped apart in many respects by the civil rights movement, and you've got Rocky Felker, a coach's kid, white kid, and his roommate, Melvin Barkum, a black kid that's actually more highly recruited than him. And to hear Rocky tell it, probably the only disagreement they ever had is about who was going to have the bet on the left and who was going to have the bet on the right. He said they were great friends. He said Melvin always had a smile on his face. So they always worked together. They were competing against each other, but it was always a friendly competition. And I think a lot of that had to do with Rocky Felker too. You know, I think they were the right two. They were the right two. And if you know anything about Rocky, you know that Rocky wants to do what's right. And Rocky's a guy that wants Mississippi State to advance. Now, it's one thing that Rocky said in one of the articles that I read is that he and Melvin wanted Mississippi State to win. That it wasn't about either one of them. They wanted the Bulldogs to win. And so it's incredible to think about, you know, that moment in our history. It's just incredible to think that, you know, these things we've gotten some age on us now, you know, and a lot of these people are kind of moving on. It saddens me, it really does. And there are a lot of these people that I wish that I would have had a chance to visit with and talk to share their knowledge, not just for myself, but with future generations, you know, of Bulldogs, to kind of let them share their experiences. And so I don't know what I'm going to do next year. I may not write a book next year. I'll be honest with you. After last night, I need some time off. I'm going to enjoy the holidays, and I'm going to enjoy the book tour. And I had said, you know, at some point I got to finish this book of recovery. I've lived a lot of years clean and sober, and I've got to eventually share that. And that's kind of documenting my own story, you know, for my family and others. Because I don't know how long all that's going to last either. And I don't mean the recovery part of it. I mean life. I don't know. None of us know. Which brings me to the last point I wanted to make on today's show is we lost Tyler Threadgill recently. I don't know his politics. I don't know his stance on vaccines. I don't know his stance on social issues. I know that he died far too young. And Tyler Threadgill, of course, the son of former Bulldog great Bruce Threadgill. Tyler comes here, had a great career for Coach Marcus Wood there at Philadelphia High School. I've known Marcus for a long time. Big fan of his too. But to the Threadgill family and the extended family, you are in our thoughts and prayers. Tyler passed far too soon. Way, way too soon. Now, I'm not going to get into some discussion about viruses and vaccines, none of that. Here's all that I know, is that one of our own has died way too soon. Way too soon. And it saddens me. You know, Tyler Threadgill, a guy that obviously you know, we covered in the recruiting process over at genespage.com, and you know, he never really found kind of a true position at Mississippi State, played some at wide receiver, but regardless of his contributions at Mississippi State, no matter how significant or how meager they may be, he's one of ours. I shared on Facebook recently, I don't care who you voted for, I don't care if you've had the shot or not, that's all your business, but I want you to live. I want you to live, and I want you to have a great life, and I want you to live life more abundantly, and I want you to be able to be with us as we celebrate national championships and great football seasons and baseball seasons to come. So take care of yourself out there. Be smart. Looking forward to getting to Memphis. As you guys know, that ball game is, I guess that's a 3 o'clock kick. It's got a busy day in front of us, but we'll look forward to having full coverage for you over at genespage.com. And again, Tyler Threadgill, rest in peace. And all those that loved him, our thoughts and prayers are with each of you. And that's not to suggest that because somebody played at Mississippi State that their death is more significant. But this is a guy that's part of our family. And I can't remember his name. I wish I could have. I would have put it in the book. But there was a guy on Facebook, and I don't know how well you know your Facebook friends. I don't know many of mine. But there was a guy that he has had cancer for some time. And I'm sure somebody will reach out to me and tell me who it was. But he had had cancer for some time. And he had fought it and fought it and fought it. And he died, I think, 2 or 3 days after we got back from Omaha. And he made a post on Facebook before he died. And he said, "I'm so glad I got to live long enough to see this." And sometimes we take all that for granted. We just think, well, there's always next year. Well, there's not always next year. And so maybe just because I've lived a life of recovery, maybe I've learned to appreciate the moment a little bit more. But I'm going to celebrate this national championship the rest of my life, and I hope it's not the only one that we get to do. And I'm a firm believer that we're not done. We're in the national championships. But life is precious. Death is certain. And so I'm a firm believer, let's love one another despite all of our differences. That's one thing about sports is sometimes we can kind of unite under a common cause and kind of put our differences aside for a while. And social media sometimes makes me want to pull my hair out. That would be a little more difficult for me to do than many of you. But at the end of the day, these folks that take kind of glee in other people's death and misfortune, it really saddens me. And so I just think let's be stand-up people in a kneel-down world and try to find a way to lift each other up. Again, life is short, death is certain. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we will make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.